Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say hello and welcome. Welcome to another presentation of the program, Ashford God Live, on this beautiful Wednesday night as we come to you from Detroit. You might just want to tell friends, relatives, and loved ones to log on to www.bridgeradioafrica.com. You can also log on to YouTube. We're live on YouTube as well, and of course, Facebook. We're live on 105.3 Top FM in Israel Grand Judicanda. We're also live on Joy 101.5 and of course Live FM 104.1. As always, folks, by way of introduction, this is the brother who doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. Play. Ashford the Giant, the now you know me Garley. Welcome.
Mama na bomba na motema na kokate tikana bibisa hey
Just like that, folks, I'd like to introduce to you Volcano Shelton, the most eruptible Shelton, my man. Hello and welcome to the show. Hey, boy, still smart. That's the name, brother.
I got it, man. I got it.
That's the name, bro. My man.
Well. We're back again, man. Monday was popping. You know how the American guys say it. Monday was popping. Tonight we're gonna have a great discussion. The newly elected chairman of the Unity Party, Mr. AMIN MODAH, is our in-studio guest. We'll be looking at an array of things regarding the party, its role in the current political climate in Liberia. So it'll be a good discussion. But over the last weeks, we've been covering some very pertinent issues in the country, looking at gender-based violence issue with what's happening with girls being raped, minors and so forth. We also covered public criticism of public officials. We then covered, public conflict of interest in public offices. So we're looking at some very important things. And I believe coming Friday, we'll also be looking at the continued printing of new banknotes. What is going to help our economy? Is this the way to solve the shortage of money? So Ashford, I think these kinds of topics provides the opportunity for us to bring to light some of the things trending in Liberia.
Well, thanks, Sheldon. What do we hope to hear from the chairman of the Unity Party tonight, Mr. MODAH? What do you will pick his picture, bring a little? What do you think we'll hear from him tonight as he comes to tell us more about the Unity Party?
Well, I think he's a smart gentleman. He's not politically overly savvy. He's getting his foot settled. He behind the scenes, he's been doing a lot. I think one of the most important things he will be talking about here is for the party to reclaim its image. Over the last 12 years, the party served Liberia through Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. There was a lot of things that went wrong, but hopefully what the party is intending to do is to be a formidable force come 2023. They want to regain that stature, and so he will be discussing some of the things that his leadership will do to create, eye opening for the party, and also to regain his base, because I'm sure some people cross carpet over those last 3 years, and even during the run of elections, there were people who cross carpet. So there's a need to regain that base and even increase their membership. So I would believe that he'll also cover the internal structures of the party. Where's the party financially in terms of some of the things you just talked the other day about political parties being susu club? They hang around, in dormant, and then come the political season, in a year of campaigning. That's when they become visible. But what do they do when they are, out of power, and the new leadership takes on? So we'll hope that they have a plan.
Okay, thank you so much, Volcano Shelton. Well, folks, very shortly we'll introduce to you our special guest. Just before then, if you just joining us, please don't be selfish. Invite a few friends. Just touch the share button. And of course, if this is your first time joining us, all you have to do is like the page, follow the page, so that the next time we come, you will get that instant notification. The next face and voice you hear with the session of being in Shelton will be that of AMIN MODAH. So just stay tuned as we broadcast, phone blast, and musical forecast.
Oka. Hiya.
Okay, just like that, we are back. I'd like to recognize a few folks here: Alvin Perry, Patrick Johnson, Edwin Lord, May to Blessing, Philip Bosworth, the rest of the crew. Hello, Honorable Chairman of the Unity Party, Mr. AMIN MODAH. Welcome to Bridge Radio Africa.
Thank you, ASHFORD. It's a pleasure being here.
Okay, for the sake of the audience, I know this is not your first time being here. Just tell us a little bit about MODAH, and of course, what brings you in tonight?
Well, in terms of who I am, I'm currently the chairman of the Unity Party. The Unity Party, as you know, is the largest party in the opposition. Recently, the former ruling party. This has been a transition for me. I've spent a lot of my years in business and in international development. I represented Liberia at the World Trade Organization, and for a while was responsible for developing trade in Liberia. For the past 25 years, I've actively been in business. I have investments in hospitality, real estate, food production, manufacturing, and construction. So getting in politics, I felt, was a natural transition at the period when I believe Liberia fervently needs change, needs new leaders, need leaders from our generation who are ready and poised for leadership. So I ran for the chairmanship of the Unity Party, and gladly we won by 70% during that election, and have been able to join a process that I found very rewarding, being able to impact the country, being able to change the dynamics of Liberian politics. I hold a master's in business administration and an undergraduate in political science. But again, my entire life career has been between international development, trade development, and specific, to be specific,
Okay.
and business.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, tell us about your new role in your chairmanship of the party. So far, how are things?
Well, again, as I earlier stated, I don't regret making this move. It gives me an opportunity to really foment the kind of change that Liberia needs to be on the table. I think for too long we have sat on the sidelines, criticized, uh, uh, give criticism without standing up to the responsibility of actually making a change. I think Unity Party provides an ideal platform for change. We were a ruling party. We've built experience. We can learn from that experience to provide leadership for the country. At this stage, the country is, receding. The economy is bad. Governance is terrible. Social services are at the lowest, and it's high time that we institute real change.
Okay, let me spend some time with you. And of course, my colleague will come and perhaps do some follow ups. Now, you have been in power now for about, let's say, 3 to 4 months as chairman. Uh, what were your disappointments, surprises, as well as areas you need to elevate your party in?
Well, I wouldn't like to call it disappointments. I did not go in with illusion that everything was going to be okay. In fact, it's because that I saw that there was a leadership gap and there was a need to develop the party, uh, develop it strategically. That's why I went in there. Uh, there are challenges, and we are making significant progress. Around those challenges. I believe that one of the issues that I found was that uh, that leadership gap created a lot of friction within the party and kind of perpetuated imaginary or perceived rifts between partisans. I think it provides an opportunity, though. We are now capable and positioned to address those rifts, those perceived rifts. Uh, you mentioned before there were some financial challenges. I think a ruling party for 12 years should have been in a better position than what I saw, but I can understand what uh, lack of leadership does in any institution coming from a business background.
And
So,
that brings me into my next question. You talk about the party being in power for 12 years. Your party has a 12-year record perceived rightly or wrongly by our people that as an era of gravely missed opportunities. What are you doing to win the hearts and minds of the Liberian people?
look, first, let me start by saying this. In any institution, including a political party, there are lessons learned, there are mistakes, there are gaps. I don't think any government, any part of the world will achieve 100% success in its goals. And I think we had challenges. But despite those challenges, it can be argued domestically and internationally that the Unity Party led government took Liberia from shambles to a path, on a path of progress. There were challenges. We were hit by Ebola. We had the global financial crisis that also impacted a lot of what we were doing. A lot of the policies that we set up, a lot of the regulations that could have spurred tremendous economic growth were impeded by those external shock, external issues. But despite that, we thrived, and I think for the fact that we ushered, we had 3 elections under our watch. We won 2. We ushered another one that shows that there was much progress. Democracies too. We had a president who respected her tenure, who created an environment for free speech, who created an environment for progress despite those challenges. So I don't think it was a failure. I think we were poised to learn from that.
Now, Given the Liberian people's negative perception of you, Party Amin, evidenced by the fact that in the last presidential election, your last Unity Party president couldn't defend not a stalled hot record. Do you think your party add a real value to this collaboration? If so, please tell us what are some of the advantages you bring to this collaboration?
Well, I mean, let's be clear. Unity Party remains the largest, most experienced party in the collaboration. Despite losing the election, we garnered more than 400,000 votes, 480,000 votes, uh, putting together all the votes garnered by the opposition, the current opposition, or those within the collaboration. They won't sum up to the votes that we garnered. That still demonstrated that demonstrates that we despite the mistakes, that we still have loyal partisans and we still have people who believe in the party. Look, there were some, we can argue why we lost the election. I mean, we can throw blames back and forth. There are traces of conspiracies, but I think it was high time that that happened. I sit and think about it. I think it was time that you know this new administration, with this new perceived pro-poor agenda, will come in and demonstrate to the Liberian people what they had and what at the end of the term, the second term, that they felt were negative. Leadership doesn't come on silver platter. It doesn't come. We should learn that it doesn't come by just making noise. It comes by experience. It comes through experience. It comes through proper planning. And the challenges are there. They are realistic. People come into leadership and we see that within this administration, with false expectations, with false expectations that lead into poor planning, lack of an agenda that really enshrines centers around the actual problems in the society.
Now,
and that's where failure comes from.
Now, Mr. Chairman, it has been trending lately that there are serious schisms in the CPP, or whether via print or online. It is said that Cummings and his ANC threatened to leave. Now, if Cummings is not the standard bearer of the CPP, now only 2 or 3 days ago, there was in the former president said Leaf is pushing ahead and doing all she can to ensure a Cummings Conan or Cummings Lawrence ticket. Basically, the fight is clearly about sidelining boycott. Can you, with the slightest modicum of propriety, give the Liberian people some answers to these alleged issues?
Well, I mean, as you said, they're alleged. I don't know anything about it. What I do know is that we have a collaboration of 4 political parties that bring in their own strength. We have political leaders, 4 political leaders that bring in their own qualities to the table. Having said that, we are approaching the collaboration with the frame of mind that I'm approaching the rebuilding of the Unity Party despite the collaboration. I believe that even within the collaboration, our potential as the largest party in the opposition, having the most credible and tested leader, can only be demonstrated by how we rebuild the party. So I'm focused on that. I don't know about the conspiracy of Madam Salif pushing an agenda that is focused on Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings is part of the collaboration, and I think there's a process that leads to the selection of the leadership of the collaboration, and I think we're on track about that. Now, I'm not going to tell you that there aren't issues within the collaboration. It's a learning process. You have 4 distinct parties with their own history, with their own constitution, that are coming to form a united front. You should expect some issues, but I think the last election has demonstrated, the last by-election has demonstrated what we can do, if we come together, if we forget about some of our individual aspirations and look at the general good. I think the collaboration the CPP can and will foment the change that we want come 2023. And I still and we firmly believe that Joseph Ndwaka is the ideal candidate that will unify the country and lead us to the next stage.
Now, one more question, then I'll bring in Shelton, and then we'll have some more follow up a little on. Now, Mr. Chairman, how do you feel where you say today about the chances of CPP holding together come 2023?
I think there are strong chances. Even if one or two parties, let me say this, even if one or two parties decide that their interests supersedes the general good, the CPP will stay stand, whether it's two parties, three parties, or four standing together. But I think it's clear again from the last election where the CPP candidates won overwhelmingly across the country that it's expedient that we hold together. And I think the political leaders are cognizant of that strength that each party brings to the table.
Shelton?
Good. Mr. Modad, you talked about some of the challenges and some of the good things that the Unity Party did over its 12 years to stabilize the country and get it to where it's at. But wouldn't you also say and agree with the many Liberians who consider the Unity Party to have done more regarding what it could have done for the country, the rule of law, fighting corruption, with the input from the international community, all of the big amount of money they got, free money to do all these things, and yet here we are, years later, we're still back to square one?
No, I disagree with it. But I will agree with one thing though. Again, I said that we have challenges. There were missteps made in the previous by the previous administration or the Unity Party-led government that anyone could point out. Okay, there were mistakes. I think Madam Salif herself alluded to some of those mistakes. I will not get into them, but one thing for sure, that doesn't diminish our capacity to learn from those mistakes and the capacity to provide better leadership. If you look at where Liberia came from post the Unity Party-led government, post 2006, we were quick to forget the potholes that were between Monrovia and the Rabat International Airport. I returned to Liberia the first time for a while in the diaspora in 2005. I saw desperation and hopelessness everywhere I went. We used to call the roads from, a SIFTA. You had no sense of direction. We had policies that were in place that was in place to drive growth, to drive development that were archaic. A lot of progress and time, a lot of time, resources, energy, both domestic and internationally, were expended within the first 3 to 5 years on developing policies and taking the country from its totally collapsed state. Let me give you an example. We never even had a trade policy involved. How will you drive, trade and economic development? The National Incentive Code, when we came in at that time, the last time it was ever reviewed was 1979. It was during the administration that a lot of the regulations, the policies that you see bearing fruit now, or bore fruit between 2006 till now, were created. Those cost money. Those cost a lot of re-engineering of the government. Institutional building is not easy, Mr. Shelton.
So I want to agree with you. I want to agree with you in part. We say the first year of first term rather of Ellen's government was to set, things in place. Then how could you justify the second term when it became cruise control? When it became cruise control, and many people left filthy rich, leaving the country to where Mr. Weah said he inherited a broke government.
Well, it's subjective. If you say people went failed to reach, I'm not going to get into individual, to point out personalities. But I'll tell you this: yes, I agree with you. The first term was expended in creating the environment, the policy, the environment for progress. And I will be the first person to put that. And even I articulated that in my book that I published, that we had missteps in the second term in implementing those policies. We lost track, and that's where traditional politics has and continue to be the downfall of our society and our potentials. Because it seems to me that in the second term it was all about politics rather about looking back at those policies, those procedures, those regulations, those things that we put in place that could bear fruit. We lost track. We were looking at the higher things than the lower lower fruits. Uh, Take for example, we had an industrial policy and trade policy that was geared towards developing Liberian entrepreneurship and value addition. We did those policies, phenomenal policies, okay, but we failed to implement them. And I don't think this government is doing any better in implementing those policies because they are there to implement. They don't need to re-engineer those policies. And that's where experience comes in. That's where being cognizant of your gap, of your mistakes come in. I think the Unity Party, the government, the Unity Party as an institution, we are cognizant of those mistakes that we've made. And I think it's high time. If you look at all those who are at the table now, we are more prepared to correct those mistakes.
So quick before Ashford come in, let me just throw one more at you. What is your current count of membership now, and how are you hoping to expand the party come 2023 in terms of membership?
Look, our membership before election exceeded 600,000, even though our voting, the votes with Ghana was about 480,000. We have orchestrated a very aggressive, we have put in place a very aggressive membership drive uh, as part of this entire scheme to resuscitate the party. And this membership drive includes putting in the structure, bringing new technology in. We've kind of put in a digital system to track our membership. Even membership dues now are done electronically. We've really revamped the party from within. We've rebuilt the institution, put in those principles, best practices, and coming from a business background, I tell people, yes, we're entering into politics, but the principles of building institution from a business and a political party are not far. So we're instituting those rigid procedures, financial controls from within to build the party. It's already bearing fruit. If you come to Monrovia, you'll see a different Unity Party headquarters that has been developed, that has been structured as an institution. You have executives, you have elected officials that are working. Last week we commenced 2021 strategic plan. Before we came into leadership, we developed a 100-day, a 3 months, and a 9 months plan before we even acceded to the chairmanship. We've implemented more than 80% of what we had planned, for the first 6 months of our leadership. And I can tell you, our plan for the future is aggressive. We're looking at county tours, reestablishing our county structure so that they are independent, and so that it ties into the national structure. And politics has changed in Liberia. The ordinary people, our partisans, that mirror other partisans, are now more inclined to look at leadership that provides that set example. And I think we're seeing that in counties. The counties, our auxiliary, the women auxiliary, the youth auxiliary, have all picked up the momentum, and they are moving forward in developing their constituents.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I want to bring you back to something you said earlier. With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, we are not talking about a 4 year or 6 year gap. You have 12 years of rule. If your party couldn't remedy those failed policies of the 3, 5, and 6 years, but continue instead of 6 more years, how can you say everybody makes mistakes? You are implying implicitly here. Should we therefore be complicit in your ineptitude?
Well, I'll ask you this: can you deny that the first 6 years was progressive? I don't think you can. I don't think it would be fair if you can. Just as much as I can acquiesce that there were gaps and there were mistakes, demonstrating maturity and willingness to make that change, I can tell you we are implementing those changes. From the party, look, I don't believe in waiting for elections to demonstrate your capacity. That's why we are now building the party that is responding to social issues, that's demonstrating to the Liberian people that even without power, even without authority, we can build a society. Our plan extends into doing agricultural projects and bringing in the collaboration to help that. So we are trying to implement some of those things and demonstrate that, look, those mistakes are there. Now, if you would tell me as humans or as progressive beings, we should not learn from our mistakes, or we should bring in new leadership, that we're going to start from scratch. I don't think at this time this is what Liberia needs. Now, those gaps that we saw, there were national domestic issues, I agree, but there were also real international issues, global issues that impacted the progress that we were poised to realize. We had a positive trajectory. Our GDP was improving. Our doing business rating had improved significantly. We were attracting investors, though again we deviated from some of the agenda where we should have focused on building, domestic entrepreneurs and small businesses. We're looking at we're trying to adjust to some of those global issues and focus on large concessions. Those are some of the things when I talk about gaps that we saw. Now you had the global financial meltdown that impacted Liberia, impacted everywhere, impacted all our comparative advantage in terms of the products we're exporting, because we had not implemented value trend that was promoting value addition. When those prices dropped for iron ore, for rubber, and the commodities that our traditional exports, it impacted Liberia. Then you had Ebola. Ebola was a new dimension for Liberia. So every time in our history, and this is not unique to the Unity Party period, it seems as if every time we have a bout of success, we're hit and our fortitude have been tested. And I'm glad that Liberians continue to show resilience and the capacity to stand up, and build from scratch. And that's what we intend to do, bring that experience back.
We want to take one or two questions from our viewers, and then we'll go back to shelter. We have Mr. Thamis Awaji. He says, as a businessman, what's the failure of the past and present government to create a vibrant private sector?
Well, I think generally what we are experiencing now is that we have not focused on developing entrepreneurship to where it ought to be. Our comparative advantage continues to be our natural resources. As I stated before, we have been focused on, large concessions. And by virtue of those concessions that people believe are going to bring employment, going to bring spur economic growth, by virtue of the structure, they repatriate funds. If you want to create a vibrant economy, a vibrant society, you need to focus on developing domestic entrepreneurship that centers around our comparative advantage. For time immemorial, our trade we have experienced trade deficits. We are still, to a large extent, a net importer. Almost every one of our basic needs are imported. You cannot build a sustainable society, a sustainable economy when you're reliant on imports. we have to tilt that balance of trade. This government has the opportunity, or had the opportunity to do so. When we went to the elections and when President we have stated Liberians will not be spectators in the economy. Though I supported the Unity Party, I was moved, and I believe that Liberia was poised to make significant progress. But again, too soon, within the first 3 months, we saw a deviation and total divergence from this agenda. Okay, and until we empower Liberians, the foreigners are going to will continue to lead our economy, and this happens for every trend. There was a period where petty trade was the most dominant, engine in the economy, but they were dominated by foreigners. Time came when trade, showed progress, export of commodities. Again, the foreigners took lead in that. Now we saw a dimension post-war, where we're getting into real estate development, we're getting into a bit of manufacturing, we're getting into tourism, we're expanding the scope of our economy. But then again, the foreigners took lead, and we haven't done well in ensuring that Liberians are leading this. Now, one of the biggest failure I think this administration has done is that within this period, Liberian entrepreneur became more interested in value addition. Now on the market, you see a lot of products that are made in Liberia. I own a factory that the only palm oil bottling factory in Liberia. Okay, in terms of size, you have several Liberian entrepreneurs in the agriculture sector now doing processed food. If this was supported, if this agenda was supported, not only will it circumvent some of the shocks from the coronavirus or some of the external shocks, but it will build the economy from within. And now, if you look at that, if you look at our economy, the foreigners are again capturing this opportunity. The foreigners are getting into value addition because they have the access to financing. They're able to how should I say it? They're able to gain the support of the government more than what they're getting, what's being given to Liberian entrepreneurs.
Now, Mr. George Lobo, one of your partisans here, says Unity Party is the most accomplished political party in the history of Liberia. Now, let me bring you back to this, then Shelton can come in. Would you?
He said what?
The most accomplished party.
Okay.
That he just said, George Lobo. Now, before Shelton comes in, would you agree that every policy any government wishes to implement requires funding? You keep saying your first 6 years were progressive. I grant you that. Can you therefore say majority of our people benefited from those so-called progressive initiatives? If so, please name some for them.
Well, first, I don't think financing has all to do with developing a progressive environment, that will stimulate economic growth and social development. I don't think so. I think governance is a key issue, okay? And to a large extent, we did well in governance. Freedom of speech was there. There were to a large extent, you have fiscal responsibility. You had strong relationship between the government and the private sector that you don't have now. You have strong relationship between the government and the civil society. So governance is a major part, and fiscal discipline too is a major part. And I think with that melange of things that need to be brought together, you can have a more vibrant economy and society. I don't think that any administration should be limited to the potential of developing the country. I don't think so, and I don't think that it's difficult to measure, progress between the various administrations. We see what is going on now. It's clear.
Now, but Mr. MODAH, just before Sheldon comes in, don't you think your progressive initiatives should have been bread and butter issues like electricity penetration to about 50%, agriculture. You left the school system a mess, which has turned out to be a quote of the day.
Well, again, I stated from the beginning that we spend a lot of time developing the policies and the strategy that would have made things better. And I agree with you, there were gaps, and I will be the first person to say that there were gaps in implementing those policies that we have made things better. But still, you cannot deny the fact that progress was made despite those gaps. You cannot deny the fact that education did improve. When I came back to Liberia, children were in the streets without going to school, but we saw education improve. We saw healthcare improve to an extent. We saw stabilization of civil servant pay. We saw rationalization of the government institutions. Those were real projects that required real funding, that required real leadership. Nothing happens easy. If it was easy, we would not be in the situation that we see now. You yourself there cannot deny that the conditions now are far deplorable than when the Unity Party government took the helm of leadership. You yourself, I don't think you can deny. You were recently in Liberia. Deny that there are clear, hardship is at the highest. People are suffering. So yes, again, I'll say this: we made some mistakes. We could have implemented. We should have done, made progress from the stage of developing those policies to really implementing some of them, most of them. But again, if we are honest, we were hit hard from all sides. There were several, exoteric issues that impacted progress in Liberia.
So, I would think that you're paving the way for we have to give similar excuses over the next 6 years, but because you mentioned the Ebola and he will be coming with coronavirus. But this is where I want to come in, Mr. Modah. You talked about Liberians adding value addition to the economy. But will you say then the lack of patriotism, policy adherence, corruption, sycophancy are those things that make it hard for Liberians to be the champions in their own economy? Because other countries,
I do.
Ghana
I agree with you to a large extent on that. But before I get into that, we are hearing excuses by this administration that it inherited a broken down institution, that some of the same issues that the previous administration had experienced, they are experiencing. But let me say this: when this administration was elected, they were elected on the basis that they could do better. They ran a campaign for years highlighting those gaps and failures of the previous administration. They should have come in prepared to implement, to develop a strategy and implement that strategy that would have done better. And they have done miserable. So it's not about piggybacking on the situation that the Unity Party government had. Again, there is no one who can say there wasn't progress despite those challenges.
And that's not what we're saying.
Compare those progress. Compare, you made the analogy that the CDC government would say, well, it's the same thing that we're facing now. But look, when the Unity Party government came in, leadership came in, we took Liberia from a very bad state to an appreciable level on the track of progress. It can be denied. The economy grew. In Chancellor government, I remember the previous government, the national budget was around 87 or 83 million. We took it up to about 500 million. That doesn't happen without some good policies
and still with several budget shortfalls, right?
Yeah, there were a couple. There were a few budgetary shortfalls. There were a few. Now compared to
here's my next question before ASHFORD coming.
Now we are experiencing chronic budgetary deficits.
So here's my next question. here's my next question. So you were leading to it, and I thought you have hit it hard. What will you say are the things that we, our government, is doing so wrong? Since during we are sideline, when he was on the sideline as a spectator, he pointed finger. He was talking a lot of, like American men said, trash talks against the aliens government. Now that he's in power, and you're saying that there are many things he's not doing, what are some of those things that you can point out that we are is not doing right, and how you think the opposition parties can bring we as government to book to do some of these things, because you're still a part of nation building?
Well, I can tell you one of the first mistakes that the Weah government made, and I'm not particularly pointing to President Weah, but as a government, was to be very exclusive, very intolerant. During the Ellen Johnson's administration, during the Unity Party leadership, we saw the opposition included in the development process. We saw them incorporated in government. But the first few actions of this administration was to ostracize anyone who criticized the government who was in the opposition. They even went to the extent of going out on businesses that were linked to people who supported the previous administration or supported Vice President Boakai in the last election. I was one of the victims. I continue to be a victim of that, the exclusiveness. That was the first mistake. Secondly, they came in with unrealistic dreams without any agenda. I can remember they alluded to the fact one of those days, someone to us stated, we will give the Liberian people their economic agenda. Forgetting to know that to have a very, very effective agenda, national development agenda, it had to be inclusive. You have to have the buy-in of the people. You have to have the buy-in of the business community, of the civil society. So from the onset, the premise was wrong. Now, our country, our political system, our system is built in a way that you have only the first 2 years to effectuate any kind of change, any kind of development. Because after the first 2 years, as we saw recently, you get into midterm elections. After that midterm election period, you get into presidential election. This government failed to make those necessary changes within the first 2 years.
Okay. Back to Unity Party, and then shortly we'll go to the telephone lines. Well,
as for people are saying his volume is a little low.
Okay. I mean, you might just want to increase your volume a little bit, please.
On your phone.
Okay. Can you hear me better?
Device. Come again?
Can you hear me better?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
For the audience. Okay, Mr. Chairman, the issue of an audit still hangs over the Unity Party and its 12 years. Moreover, that the recent revelation by Minister Samuel Toyd about $300 million left out of the balance. Okay, and of the central bank, and then over $10 million budgeted for the executive mansion repairs had not done. Missing money from local funds were not allocated for, and your leader at the time said she took responsibility. Well, if your leader took responsibility, where is the money? Now, by your leadership to the internal or public audit or the official statement by your party. So in essence, we still have audit hanging over the 12-year route of the Unity Party.
I'll answer this in a very simple and direct way. If this administration believed that there's a need for audit, and they believe they are not culpable, let them institute that audit. If I were this administration, if I was leading this administration, it was the first thing I would have done. When I got into the leadership of the Unity Party, the first thing I did was to try to understand where I was, what I was inheriting. So they should have conducted the audit. That shouldn't be the basis for their failure. Again, they came on with the premise, they came with the agenda. They told the Liberian people that they could provide better leadership, they could address all those issues, including corruption, malfeasance, fiscal indiscipline, and what have you. But they have failed miserably. We saw the corruption showing its face within the first 3 months. We saw people building properties out here as if the 6-year tenure was too short. So the onus is on them to have started. Onus was on them to have started with an audit. And until they conduct the audit that absolve they themselves, because mind you, many of them served in the previous administration. And I think it's best for the country that we do that. We conduct that audit so that we start on a new footing and understand where we are headed. But again, they don't have any strategy. The pro-poor agenda is a failure because it should have engendered all of those things.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. MODAH. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we want to take to the telephone line just in case you have a question for the chairman. And of course, the number to call is 317. Let me see if I can pin the number. The number is 317-353-5642. Again, the number is 317-353-5642. You can begin calling now. Sheldon, you want to chime with something as we wait for callers to begin calling in?
Yeah, quickly, we want to remind our viewers and listeners, if you're just joining us, we are featuring the current chairman of the Unity Party, Mr. AMIN MODAH, as our guest tonight. And I think we're having a great discussion, and we're hoping that you can also chime in by chatting some of those concerns you have. Also, we want to remind you that ASHFORD GARLEY Live is brought to you on Bridge Radio Africa every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m. But we also say that we will broadcast if there was something pressing outside of our normal schedule. So we want to encourage you to like the page, invite a friend, get some popcorns, like ASHFORD always says, and something to drink. And let's talk about Liberia, the diaspora, and Africa as a whole.
Okay, thank you, Liberia. Thank you, diaspora, for making us your choice for entertainment, information, and as well as education. Let us go to the telephone line now. We have a 202 number. Please tell us your name.
Hello.
Yeah, you live on the radio. Tell us your name, please.
Hi, I'm Sia calling.
Hey, Sia. Hello, welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to all in the studio. Hi, Chairman MODAH. How are ya?
Hi, Sia. It's a pleasure.
Likewise. Okay. Undoubtedly, tonight we have made several attempts to explain the specific features context to our geopolitics, the history, and political and religious traditions. But we know that several factors seem to counterbalance the purpose of coalition governments and thereby support a sense of loyalty coalition partners, as you know, the case was explained earlier with the Cummins factor. It's also, sufficient to note that the current electoral system is not based upon a proportional representation like in the US or other places, Denmark or Norway, where you have, a two-party ideological polarization. So oftentimes seen in those sort of countries. As such, right, there seems to be no clear majority in sight for the future, given the geopolitics, the history, and our political and religious traditions. So what is CCC's plan or CPP's plan to push Liberians to the center and thereby form a two-party ideological polarization that modifies significantly the classic ideologies that operate in state and society?
Thank you, Sia. With two more callers, we'll go back to Chairman MODAH. 602 is the error code. Tell us your name.
Thank you, Mr. Gallis. This is Steve Bullis, commonly known as Moses calling from Arizona, Phoenix. I have two questions for the chairman there. My first question here would be, there was a statement that he made not too long ago in answering your question. He said, quote unquote, that it's CDC-led government, if they're not comfortable, he used the word comfortable, the father would have audited or they would have go ahead with auditing. I would like you to expand on that. What does it mean comfortable? Is he trying to tell the public that CBC knows what happened to local money and what happened to the other money that you alluded to, or the question that you asked him? That's my first question. But here's my second question that relates to the CPP. I was reading the CPP document, and there is a fee that needs to be paid that each party, each member of the CPP has to contribute. My question is, I saw during the campaigns of all of the CPP candidates, I saw that the CPP candidates were raising money on their own through different means. My question is, how is the CPP planning to raise money out of their maybe dues that they need to be paying? How is the CPP planning to raise money? And is every member in that group current on their payment? Please answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve Bullitt. That was Steve Bullitt from Arizona, making his presence known here tonight. We want to go to 508. Tell us your name, please.
Yeah, my name is Dalen Wahu. I'm calling from Worcester, Massachusetts.
You're live on the radio. Go ahead, ask your question.
Thank you for having me. How you doing, Honorable MODAH? Well, my question is directly to you. After elections are completed and the winner is announced, every presidential candidate or Senate bearer, everyone is considered an ordinary partisan. So over the past 3 years, I've been hearing you guys referring to Joseph Boakai as a political leader of the UP and Alexander Kumi as political leader of DNP, and the same thing with Bernard Lewis. Why are these guys not ordinary partisans, free people who are free to do whatever they want to do with their political life, and you continue to call them political leader? Why are they political leader? Why is it that everything about Liberia is so different?
Thank you.
Lost the election. You lost the election. It's supposed to be ordinary citizen. You should be the leader as a chairman. You should be the leader of UP, not Joseph Boakai. So I want you to explain to me from where does it come from to be called political leader and even representing a political party? Like,
thank you.
CPP, he is the one he is the face of the UP.
Thank you, Wawu.
Why is he the face of the elections are over? He's an ordinary partisan. Why are you not a face of UP? Why is Joseph Boakai the face of UP? I need to make that clear to you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. MODAH.
Thank you. I will start with the last question, and I suggest considering the weighty questions that we expect, if you can kindly allow me to answer each one before we make progress. With the last one, let me say this. Every party is structured differently. A lot of the parties rest on the benevolence of and the sponsorship of the standard bearers. Okay, but the Unity Party is unlike any of those. The Unity Party has a full-fledged constitution that was drawn up, with the merger of 3 political parties. In our structure, the leader, the chairman leads the party. The chairman leads the party. The chairman is responsible for the day-to-day activities of the party, not the standard bearer. However, our standard bearer is still holds the title because we haven't gone to elections, to convention. Our convention is scheduled for 2022, and during that time we will elect a new standard bearer. And even our standard bearer now always allude to the fact that he holds that standard bearership because we haven't gone to convention. And that's where some of the gaps, some of the issues, the leadership gaps in the party was responsible for, some of the stagnation in the process. But we are heading to convention, and during that convention, we'll elect a new standard bearer, which I'm very positive will be Honorable Boakai. Going to the next question, going to the first question from Sienna. She posed a very interesting question, and let me say this: Liberia is so diverse that it will take some time to get into that 2 or 3 party state. We have not too long ago, we came from a very destructive war that transcended tribe, that transcended religion. So there are still so many divisive social tendencies that makes it impossible. Well, when I got into the leadership of the Unity Party, I always said that I come with no regards, no lineage towards tribalism, towards location, in terms of geographical location. But I have learned a lot over the last few months that tribalism seems to be entrenched. Until we address some of those issues, it will continue to affect our politics. Look at the recent election within the legislature. We now have a situation where, even though we fought against, it's a situation where you have the speaker, the deputy speaker, the pro tem from a particular geographical location. So there will always be that issue until we make those changes. Now I can tell you this: the CPP, for the fact that it has come together to form a collaboration, is trying to address that. And until we realize that with strength, again, this is where we're heading. Until most political institutions realize that with strength we can better foment change, we can better address political change, we're not going to succeed. And I think I know we're heading that route because we see it. We saw what we did with the true collaboration in the last election. Now, if you look at the political sphere, there are also other alliances. There is a Rainbow Alliance that comprises of 3 or 4 other parties. So we're already heading towards the direction where smaller political parties see the need to come together. But I agree with your assertions here. There needs to be a total review of our political makeup. Take, for example, the number of legislators we have in this small country versus, if you look at it in comparison to the size of countries, look at the US. So there are still a lot of things we need to address. The other gentleman stated that I alluded that the CDC government was culpable. I'm not trying to throw blames. What I'm trying to say is that they were also part of the previous administration. President Ria held several positions in the previous administration. Many of those who are ministers now held positions, assistant and deputy minister positions in the previous administration. What I'm saying is that ideally, as someone who believes in principles and rely on my credibility for everything, when I take over an institution, or if I should have taken over a country, I would audit that institution. I would have audited my predecessors. Okay?
Okay.
It's a natural course that you need to understand what you're inheriting.
Thank you.
You need to understand, not only what you're inheriting, what you need to put in place to succeed. And they haven't done that. So they shouldn't throw blames out there about the past performance of the government on every level. It doesn't even only have to be the issue of corruption. Let them audit the government performance in terms of institutions, in terms of the human capacity, in terms of how we harness donor resources.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Comparison. Now, if they can do that, they will be setting a yardstick by which, and I think they know this, they will be setting a yardstick by which they themselves will be held accountable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we wind down, we want to go back to the line, and then we'll come and start to get closing statements. That's a 617 number. Hello, caller. Tell us your name.
Good evening. This is Emmanuel Jackson from Boston. Good evening, Shelton, and good evening, Chairman Nuna Haddad. I follow religiously the 12 years of Unity Party. And what I see as someone who has studied a lot about the politics of our country, more than 1958, and basically just from reality, know all the details that have happened that caused Liberia the way it is. Now, on the Unity Party government, I follow this government through a radio program, and every day I would get and listen. But the thing that was very much in the news concerning Unity Party government was the massive looting and corruption in the country. Yes, we must admit, the country had a lot of goodwill towards it because Mrs. Seti was internationally known, so she was able to get debt cancellation and bring in more money from foreign direct investment and the concession era. But some of the issues that now affecting the country, one of which is the issue with the silver mining and Barney Sherman and all these guys, Eugene Shana and McIntosh and all these people that basically ran Ellen's government, and the various concessions that were signed did not produce the kind of jobs to create an economy that will see some steps towards industry in the country. So I just think, unity government has had its share from what I saw. And just before the government came to an end, there was an issue where they raised, I think, the price of drinking water. At the time, the economy was sinking because of the Ebola crisis.
Thank you, sir.
And unity government, raised the price of drinking water, the basic water that people were drinking. And that thing really hurt me.
Thank you.
Above all, another thing that was very bad is almost like what
Thank you, sir. We're out of time. Thank you.
Yeah,
Let
me just close with the point. Was the issue of the state of emergency?
Thank you, sir. You say enough. We deal with time here. Thank you so much. You made that important point. Now, Mr. MODAH, just before we bring you in for your closing statement, in fact, let us go to the line again and see who do we have here now. Hello, caller.
Yes.
Tell us.
On the line?
You live on the radio. Tell us your name, please.
Yeah. Listen, I would just call this bully too, Mr. Haddad, Mr. MODAH. Please take a pen. Let's go over one or two things, and I'll be very brief. You've not answered the questions posed by Mr. Boley, and even what Mr. Garley had questioned or asked you. One, the 10 million that your former Standard Bearer talked about, she took responsibility for. Executive management repairs for 3 years that were on the budget and there were no repairs done. And you talk about even the implementation monies. So, and then there's also that you're open to an audit, and this is breaking news. And you alluded that maybe CDC has its hand into it. So I want you to just sort of make a clear declaration, maybe as chairman, break away from this. And I want you to make a statement as to where you stand. But here's my concern with the Unity Party. You as a chairman, and I believe you mean well, 12 unbroken years has resulted to no running water, no electricity, no infrastructure roads, 12 years with all the goodwill from the international community. I want you to reconcile that as to why you think as a progressive country will have any confidence if you have the same standard bearer that's behind the scenes manipulating. You have Boyka, who was there 12 years. So let me wrap this up by saying, make a declaration that you're calling on the CDC, you're asking the CDC to place an audit, because that's what you said in response to Mr. Garley and Mr. Boley. Secondly, how do you reconcile 12 years of administration?
Thank you, sir.
Most time let me just end on this. When companies are broken down, you show something after 12 years. What do you have to show? And lastly, I'm not clear on what strategy your party is going or is taking the lead into. I mean, I just want you to, I think you're brilliant.
We don't have the luxury of time, Mr. Wilson. We don't have the luxury of time. Thank you so much. I will go straight to you, Mr. MODAH, answer these questions, and then you can give us a closing statement. Call this a night. Mr. MODAH.
Mr. Wilson, thank you for your questions. No, I think I did answer. And I did acquiesce that there were issues in the previous administration. Look, I was never in government in the previous administration, okay? I supported the administration. But I'll speak to you as an honest person and as someone who is taking the party, is developing a party based on credibility, based on potential, and based on sincere desire to make Liberia better. I will reiterate, if this administration was sincere in its accusations, they should have audited the previous administration. I mean, it's just basic principles that if you're inheriting something, you're inheriting leadership, you should know where you start from. Okay? So I will welcome an audit. And I will hold also the administration by the same yardstick. They will be audited. And it's the only way we can foment a transparent society and an accountable society. Okay? I don't think anyone should come in and rip the country. I'm not going to throw fingers at anyone because it's still accusations. Whenever that audit comes out and it shows those who are culpable, let them be prosecuted. That's my take on this.
Ashford.
Now, he asked with what happened in the last 12 years, where the party is leading. Listen, with all that has happened in the last 12 years, whether good or bad, the Unity Party still remains a representation of a good amount of the Liberian people. It is incumbent on me as chairman and the leadership that we have now, that we have put in place, to develop that party, to change the party into a more credible institution. There should always be continued improvement in any institution, whether we did well, whether we succeeded 90% or 50%, we are building a viable institution. We are building an institution that's responsible to its partisans.
Mr. Chairman,
people.
Mr. Chairman, you are right in your answer that this administration should have been audited for the 12 years of Unity Party rule. Now, do you think this gives credence to the folks who say that the Liberian people should find a viable alternative in 2023? Would you that will audit the Unity Party administration and the CDC?
Well, I think any government that comes in 2023 should start with that premise. Okay.
Thank you.
And that doesn't state or categorically rule out the Unity Party as a viable institution. Again, it represents the people. The Unity Party represents a bulk of the people. We are developing. We are learning from our mistakes, and we're moving forward. And Mr. Wilson stated that you have a party that's still being controlled by Madam Sirleaf or anyone else, and I say no to that. That's not the case. We're building a party that's unbeholden to anyone. That we're building a party that is above any individual, be it the chairman or the standard bearer. And I think one of the reasons why there's a strong relationship and there's a strong affinity with Honorable Joseph Waka is that he supports it. He supports the restructuring of the party where it is independent of him and of anyone. Now, I said on your program before, Ashford, when I was running for the chairmanship, I'm not beholden to anyone, not Madam Salif, nor Honorable Waka. We're building a party. At this particular period, we have a standard bearer that's appreciated by the people, that has demonstrated over and over leadership, that has experience, and we're putting forward our candidate. Now, there are several things that people might point out there. That Honorable Bwakai was in the Unity Party, but he was the vice president in the previous administration. Let an audit come out and say or demonstrate that he's culpable of some of the issues that were brought up. And I believe that he's not.
Okay, I mean, thanks. Time has caught up with us. But before you give us your closing statement, I think Sheldon wants to chime in a little bit.
That's just one question for Amin, quick, and it's just probably 30 seconds answer. With the way that President Weah is leading the country right now, do you say emphatically that come 2023 there will be a new president and a new government? Would that go the UP or the coalition?
Yes. I think that was demonstrated in the by-election. It's not only
we can hold you to that as party chairman.
Yes.
Don't be like Mobile Molo who said he will resign.
Make a talk.
Look, I'm in this to foment change.
Good.
I am moved from the private sector because I believe that we are responsible. Some of us who have been successful, who have something to contribute, should not be sitting on the sidelines. Okay? And one of the things that pushed me into this was the understanding that there is mass failure in this administration. Everything that the administration, every banner that the CDC government flew out there as a reason for them aspiring to take leadership, they have failed miserably in it. Governance is at its lowest. The economy is at its worst.
Thank you,
There
MODAH.
is malfeasance written everywhere.
Thank you, MODAH.
I do believe the Liberian people are cognizant about this.
Okay, now I want to say a big thank you to you for taking enough time just to fund that. Is about what 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning in Liberia.
No, it's after 2.
After 2. Okay, please give us your closing statement, Mr. MODAH. Thank you so much.
Well, first, let me thank you and Volcano for providing this platform to discuss the Unity Party, and to the audience who called in, those who are listening. I thank you for your time. I assure you that don't mistake my candor and acquiescence to of some of the issues within, the previous administration, the Unity Party-led government, as a basis to brand the Unity Party as not being productive, of not being out there. The Unity Party still remains the largest opposition party for the fact that we can acquiesce on our gaps and are willing to make those changes. We encourage young Liberians, we encourage Liberians in the diaspora to come back to the party, help us rebuild the party. Whether we win the election or not, a political party as large as the Unity Party can play a fundamental role in fomenting changes. We need to get involved, and we are getting involved in social activities. We are there to put check and balance on the current administration and the next administration. We welcome Liberians from all walks of life to join us to help us build that party. And it's not only about the party, it's about the country. To partisans who, because of the gaps, as ASHFORD stated from the onset, might have left the party, we are developing an inclusive party. We're trying to bridge some of those internal issues, and we welcome you back.
Thank you,
But
Mr. Jeff.
You need to come back to a party based on love for country and respect for the constitution of the party.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And please don't make this your last time. We'll be looking forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Well, this is the second time. The next time, I know there will be a third and fourth time, and I will bring one of my colleagues, Bruno, online. I'm sure he can share a lot of information.
Okay, thank you, Amin. Thank you so much. Bruno, my man, your closing statement. We got to go. We got to run.
Well, I think we had a very good discussion. Why it is true that there's still a lot of work to be done. The Unity Party has a lot of exonerating to do. And of course, Amin is right. The CDC government should have done that. I said a long time ago that we should have known what he was inheriting, because he was in that government and he was in the Senate. He could have pulled in the finance minister, then Amara Kone, and said, listen, what type of economy are we about to inherit to go to elections with? He didn't do that. So yes, there's still a lot to be done. But I hope that Amin and his party will work hard, as he just made an affirmation that come 2023, there will be a new president and a new government. Hopefully he doesn't resign after his session here tonight, but it was a good discussion. And come Friday, we intended to talk about, the continued printing of currency. So we'll hope to have more of our viewers and listeners come back, because it will be a very good discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelton. And then we'll talk to you Friday. And folks, I'm afraid that's all the time we have to be with you tonight. God willing, Friday night, same time, same place. Until then, please allow me to borrow the wordings of the wise man. Tough times don't last, tough people do. The height of a man is never known until he rises, because there's no second chance to make that first impression. Don't see okra and swallow bone, because you can't hide your nakedness from bathing bucket. When God bless you, don't see that medicine. When white men know your friend black man. When you see catfish comes from underneath the water and say the crocodile is sweating, please don't say that lie. The medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of Liberia, the broadcast commissioner, ASHFORD the giant, that now you know me, GARLEY. Have a good night.
Bapesaka motema ndenge nini yolma double double oh komelaka ngata mikolo ya poso mama oh double double esanga mwa bezeli tama na kachwa oh double double soki opesi maya lolemu wana na komi esika nalingaka yo Maria Masane na bomba na motema na koka